Okay, here we go. Chapter 12, Cry of the Hunters. So yesterday we started together and we were able to go over a couple of the questions. So I'm just going to review those and then we're going to pick up where we left off. So the first question was, as chapter 12 opens, what realization does Ralph make about his present situation? And notice it indicates that the answer would be on page 184. So yesterday we did get a highlight on 184, and it is the third full paragraph down, and it says this: he argued unconvincingly that they would let him alone, perhaps even make an outlaw of him. But then the fatal, unreasoning knowledge came to him again. The breaking of the conch and the deaths of Piggy and Simon lay over the island like a vapor, and I believe we highlighted these painted savages would go further and further. Then there was that indefinable connection between himself and Jack, who therefore would never let him alone, never. So what we were looking for number one was the fact that he realizes that these savages are going to become more and more savage, and that Jack is never going to stop hunting him until he gets him. For number two, on page 185, as Ralph is walking through the jungle, he stumbles upon the Lord of the Flies. This is the first time he sees this symbol because he was not there when Jack created it. And so we see that the symbol, it looks entirely different from what we saw in chapters 8 and 9. It is just a skull on a stick, completely white. And we highlighted on 185 the first paragraph where it talks about, but then he saw that the white face was bone and that the pig's skull grinned at him from the top of the stick. He walked slowly into the middle of the clearing and looked steadily at the skull that gleamed as white as ever the conch had done. And then the second part was, what does he do to it? And on 185, we also highlighted the fact that he was licking his bruised knuckles and looking at the bare stick while the skull lay in two pieces, its grin now 6 feet apart. So he punches at the skull, it falls off the stick, it breaks into two, and then as the final act, he takes the stick with him, the stick sharpened at both ends, as his weapon. On number three, the question was, explain how Ralph has become like Piggy. This answer is going to be on 186. Do we have a highlight on that page, or is this where we're starting?
Yeah, we're starting.
Okay, so on 186, there are two answers, but there's actually three answers that we would take for this question. So does anybody have any ideas as to how Ralph is sort of like Piggy now? Abby, give me one. Yes, so the line says, on 186, do you see this first paragraph? It's the last line of the first paragraph. So you're going to highlight, lying there in the darkness, he knew he was an outcast. So that's one. What's that?
Well, I was going to say, like, he was the most hated person on the island since Piggy's gone.
Yes, and that would sort of go with that idea of him being the outcast. And then look at what he says after that. He says out loud to himself, because I had some sense. How is that like Piggy?
Because Piggy, like was really smart.
He was the most
Smart.
logical,
Yeah.
sensible boy on the island. Okay? So now you've got he's an outcast and you've got he's sensible. There's a third thing. Now that Piggy is gone, Jack, right? What am I looking for, Vivian?
Needs a new person to bother.
Yes, he needs a new target. Yes. So there's really three answers for this. Ralph has become like Piggy because he's an outcast, because he's trying to act sensibly, and because he's Jack's new target. So all of those would be great answers for that. Okay? So on 186, he realizes that his present situation is quite grim. Basically, there was no chance of rescue. There was no chance of building up an outlaw tribe at the other end of the island. Sam and Eric were savages now, like the rest. Piggy was dead, and the conch smashed to powder. So he sort of assesses his situation, and it's looking pretty bad. On 187, he decides to, because it's getting dark, sneak over to Castle Rock. And the reason why he does this is because when he looks up on the lookout tower, there's not one boy doing the job, there's two boys, right? And so immediately he knows it's Sam and Eric. And he's thinking that if he sneaks over to them and tries to talk to them, that maybe, just maybe, they'll come with him and they could be together again. So on 187, he sneaks over, he gets their attention by whispering to them. Eventually they look off the side of the ledge and they see Ralph there. We're gonna go to 188, and on 188, what do they tell Ralph is the reason why they stayed, why they had to join? What do they say? Caitlin, go ahead.
Well, they like work yourself a little into it, like they heard some.
Yeah, like we infer based on what they say that there was some maybe torture involved or some force involved. Okay, so this is going to be on 188, and I'm right in the middle of the page. Do you see in the middle there's like all these M dashes with like short chalky lines? So why don't you start your highlight with, you got to go because it's not safe. Do you see where I am? It's the first piece of dialogue towards the middle of the page. Highlight down. You gotta go because it's not safe. They made us, they hurt us. And Ralph says, who, Jack? And they go, oh no. They bent to him and lowered their voices. Push off, Ralph, it's a tribe. They made us, we couldn't help it. And I would stop it, couldn't help it. So yeah, there's definitely an inference there that they were tortured or forced. And I mean, guys, it's not that far-fetched. Do you remember what Jack did to Wilfred?
Yeah,
Remember the little one that he tied up and left him tied up and then smacked him around a couple times and then released him for no reason? So again, it's not that far-fetched that these boys would be forced or tortured. Okay, now, number 5 is gonna come at the bottom of 188, top of 189, and it's a long quote. I wanna take the entire thing that Sam and Eric tell Ralph. So if you wanna start at bottom of 188, take that whole dialogue, and then up to 189, and I would go all the way until they're done talking. If you wanna get a head start on that highlight, that's our next highlight. So basically, there's lots of things that Sam and Eric tell him as far as the plan goes. So, bless you. Let's get multiple hands here. Tell me just one of any of the lines that Sam and Eric tell. Go ahead.
They're gonna hunt you tomorrow.
Perfect. So the first thing they say is, you are the target. We're gonna hunt you tomorrow. Okay, Josh? What about them?
I think.
Well, what does it say right after they say the Chief and Roger,
Yes, Roger.
they're going to, yes, they say they're going to kill you. Luke, how are they gonna hunt him?
Oh yeah, and throw our spears like at a pig.
They're gonna treat him like the pig and throw their spears at him. Good. How are they gonna search? What was the plan for how they're gonna search? Lucy?
Weren't they like gonna go in a line?
Yes. And spread out like a couple yards from each other and walk from one end of the island to the other and sweep it. And then if one of the boys who's on the line spots their target, how are they going to alert everybody across the island that the target has been spotted? Do you remember? Yes, a ululation. Oh! And they're gonna spread that signal down the line so everybody can go to the exact spot where the target has been sighted. Sophisticated, huh? All right. So now, that is definitely a lot of information, but there's more, right? So first of all, did you highlight, starting here on 188 with listen, Ralph, never mind what sense, that's gone, down the rest of the page, top of 189, and did you stop with, we've got to give signals like this? Okay, so that's good, you have that whole chunk? Okay, so now, on 189, he begins to ask, what are you going to do when you find me? And every time he asks, the boys don't respond. Okay, bottom of 189, do you see the last 6 lines where it starts with, you don't know Roger? You see that? Highlight that down to the bottom. You don't know Roger, he's a terror. And the chief, they're both terrors, only Roger. The boys froze, someone was climbing toward them from the tribe. What does that Like, what inference can you make from that piece of text? Libby?
That Roger's a lot worse than Jack.
Yes, that perhaps this boy, Roger, is way worse than Jack is. And you know what's interesting? Did anybody think to go back to chapter 1 and find or look for the first time that this boy was described? Did you? Yes. It described him, very good, it described him as a very secretive, quiet boy who no one knew. So none of the other boys in the group knew this kid. And he was like real timid and shy and didn't really say a whole lot of anything. And it's sort of weird because like, it's kind of the quiet one that you have to watch out for. And now that he's taken on this role of, I don't know what you would call him, second in command, he's like, you know, isn't the second person in command always the one that does all the dirty work? Right? The guy that's in charge always gives his tasks to somebody else. And that's what he's become, like that second lieutenant or whatever, and he's doing all the stuff. So yeah, he's a little dangerous. So on 190, on 100, page 190, what does Ralph tell the twins that he's going to do? What was his plan? Sam told their plan. What does Ralph say he's going to do? Like a new hand, like a Michael.
He's gonna like drink cake shells and take it.
Where? Yes, you're right. Where? That's key. Yeah, so he's going to stay close by with the hopes that what? He's going to stay close by with the hopes of what? What does he tell Sam and Eric? Yeah, like, right, like they would assume that he ran far away because he was so scared, but he's going to actually stay close by. Okay, so let's highlight that. Top of 190, count down with me 6 lines. And that should take you to I'll lie up close. Highlight. I'll lie up close in that thicket down there, he whispered. So keep them away from it. They'll never think to look so close. Stop there. And as their conversation comes to an end, he says, Sam, I'm going to be all right, aren't I? And Sam quickly shoves a hunk of meat into Ralph's hands and says, here, take this. And he goes one more time, but what are you going to do when you catch me? And again, the boys are silent. And right in the middle of the page, you're looking for one more time where he says, what are you going to do? Can you find that line? Highlight. What are you going to do? And then highlight, from the top of the towering rock came the incomprehensible reply, Roger sharpened a stick at both ends. So what are we and Ralph to infer that his fate will be if caught? What will his fate be? Kyle?
He's gonna get killed.
Uh-huh.
And then they're gonna cut his head off.
Uh-huh. Yes. Okay, so now, when they say Roger sharpened a stick at both ends, immediately that has no meaning to Ralph, correct? Am I correct?
Yes.
Do you see, what text leads me to that? Abby?
Ralph tried to touch me physically.
Great. And on 191, first paragraph, highlight. What did it mean? A stick sharpened at both ends? What was there in that? Excellent. And why is this irony? Why is this irony? Well, dramatic irony in the sense that we know, but he doesn't know. But it's also situational irony because why? It's dramatic because we know and he doesn't, but it's also situational.
Wait, me?
Yeah.
Well, they put the pig's head on and like Piggy died or they killed him. Wait,
No,
that-
what's irony about him going, a stick sharpened at both ends? What does that
He
mean?
has a stick sharpened.
He's holding in his hand the stick sharpened at both ends, and he cannot figure out what on earth it means. Yes, there's situational irony in that. Very good. Okay, so for number 5, you should have a little bit of a lengthier answer. Sam and Eric tell Ralph that Jack is going to hunt him tomorrow like the pig. They are going on a line across the island until they find him. When Ralph asks what they are going to do to him, Sam and Eric say, quote, a stick sharpened at both ends. Okay? Make sure you add that last part, because that to me is the most disturbing information that they share, not so much that they're going to hunt him. It's more of what they're going to do. All right, so now, here's kind of a great pause, right? Ready? Boy with the mulberry birthmark. Total accident. Simon.
They didn't know.
Kind of didn't know, but then maybe sort of know, but yeah, kind of a mistaken identity, right? Peggy.
They knew.
One boy. Totally on purpose, correct? And now you've got the whole group of boys planning, plotting, all intent, because if they catch him, this is what's gonna happen. Do you see that escalation? Now luckily for Ralph, right, doesn't come to fruition. But if he is caught, holy cow, totally savage. And this is why we don't bump to 10 until chapter 12. Simon's death was horrible, but if Ralph is caught, it's going to be more horrible. The intent is more horrible. Okay? All right, 6. How do they find him? Who haven't I called on today? Evan, how do they find him? How do they find him hiding in the thicket? I guess he didn't read. Okay, here we go. This is on 192.
Jack Force.
Did he get credit for homework? Okay, go ahead.
Jack Force wanted to where Ralph was.
Yes, they were torturing them outside of the thicket. Okay, good. So he's inside this brush, it's brush and bramble and vines. It's really thick. And so they're standing outside of it, and right here on 192, so I'm down here, do you see again, there's dialogue going on between boys? That's what I'm focused on. So I'm starting with at last he heard a voice, Jack's voice, but hushed. Are you certain? The savage, yeah, he should be outside, right? Yeah, the savage address said nothing, perhaps he made a gesture. And I think I'm gonna start my highlight with Roger spoke. Did you find that? You okay? It's down here, below the halfway point. Roger spoke.
I found it.
Yeah, and then highlight, if you're fooling us. Immediately after this, there came a gasp and a squeal of pain. Ralph crouched instinctively. One of the twins was there, outside the thicket, with Jack and Roger. You're sure he meant there? The twin moaned faintly and then squealed again. You can stop there. So definitely correct, Miguel. We're doing something to them, right? And so they're forcing them to give up his hiding spot. All right, so now, what, Michael?
Oh, no, they were interrogating him.
What?
Okay.
No, yeah, it's kind of like that, where you're trying to get information out of somebody, but they're allowed to use force. So, okay. Now, for number 7, there's actually 3 answers. We only asked you for 2. And I'd like to work in chronological order for the sake of highlighting. So on page 193, what is the first way that he tries to get him to come out of the thicket? Caitlin, go ahead.
They try to put rocks down.
Yes. So the first thing he tries is rolling boulders through the thicket to either crush him or make him come out. So you're going to see on 193, there's 3 different times that you're going to see heave, heave, heave. So the first one is up here. It's after the first paragraph, okay? Or I'm sorry, after the second paragraph. So you ready for a highlight? So you're finding the first heave, heave, heave. Highlight that, and then you're going to highlight the red rock that he could see at the top of the cliff vanished like a curtain, and he could see figures in blue sky. So the first one goes, and it basically, you can stop there, and basically the rock misses him and goes smashing towards the beach. Then it's quiet. Then he hears a second time, heave, 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 and nothing happens. And then towards the bottom of the page, 3 lines up from the bottom, you see for the third time, heave, heave, heave. And in the last line, highlight, something boomed up on the red rock. Then the earth, go to the next page, jumped and began to shake steadily while the noise steadily increased, Ralph was shot into the air and thrown down and dashed against the branches. You can stop there at branches. Top of 194. Okay. So first, rolling rocks. The second one is the one that a lot of people missed, and this is what happens next on 194. Does anybody see this, Josh?
Don't be trying to burn it.
That's the third thing.
Oh.
Okay, so I want the second one. Elliot?
All the jagged spears.
They send a boy in. They pick an anonymous savage and make him try to go in. And what happens when he goes in there?
Doesn't he like just go out and just get
Oh wait.
What's that?
Doesn't he go out because he's getting like poked with all the sticks and stuff?
No. You see in the middle of 194 where it says, ah,
Oh wait, doesn't Ralph jab him?
stab him. Yes, he gets stabbed. Okay, so I'm down here on 194. I am 2 indents down. Do you see this paragraph that starts with yet not entirely so?
Yeah.
Highlight. They were whispering out there, and suddenly the branches were shaking furiously at 2 places on his right. The pointed end of a stick appeared, and in a panic, Ralph thrust his own stick through the crack and struck with all his might. You can stop there. And then he stabs the boy that's trying to come in after him. Okay? And then they're arguing outside, and somebody says, see, I told you he's dangerous. Okay, so now, Josh, third thing.
They burn
They're gonna set it on fire, yeah. So somebody makes the suggestion, and even one of the savages is like, no, in a shocked voice, but then they're all like giggling outside, like, yeah, let's try that. So on 195,
Who do I owe, Josh?
yeah, Josh and Elliot.
Somebody else up, yeah.
On 195 at the top, you just wanna start like highlighting mid-sentence, just highlight, stick snapped, he stifled a cough, smoke was seeping through the branches in white and yellow wisps. The patch of blue sky overhead turned to the color of a storm cloud, and then the smoke billowed around him. Someone laughed excitedly, and a voice shouted, smoke! And you can stop there. Okay? So there you go. He first tries rolling boulders through the thicket, then he tries to send a savage in, and Ralph stabs the boy, and last Jack sets the thicket on fire in an attempt to smoke him out and lead him to his death. All right, number 8. Did you find any sentences where Ralph is acting or reacting like an animal? Like he's being described in a very vivid way that's sort of animalistic. And do you have a page number by any chance? Because that would be super helpful for us. Libby, do you have one?
On 189.
189. I have not gotten this one today.
And it says, and we're got to be careful and for our spirit.
Okay, so a lot of people pick that, and that's not a description of how Ralph is behaving. That is just them telling their plan. So you want something where it's like Ralph moved a certain way, or he acted a certain, like you want something that's more descriptive of him. Luke.
Wait. Ralph launched himself like a cat, stabbed, snarling with his spear, and the savage doubled up. There was a shout from beyond the thicket, and then Ralph was running with swiftness and fear through the air.
Very good. This is on 195. Yep. Do you guys see this huge paragraph in the middle of 195 that starts with he wormed his way? Okay, count down from the top line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8 lines down. And you're gonna see the sentence that Luke just gave us, and we're gonna highlight that. It's Ralph launched himself like a cat, stabbed, snarling with the spear, and the savage doubled up. That's a really awesome sentence that's full of imagery. Okay, Lucy, do you have another one?
Yeah, on 197, it says, wise then he wondered if a pig would agree.
Yes, and that is after he's like deciding his options, and he makes a choice, and he's like, I wonder if a pig would agree. That's another good one. We don't have to highlight that one, but that's a good one. Okay? It's fine. If you know where it is, that's fine, but I'm not gonna spend time. Vivian.
On 194, I got he raised his spear, shot a little, and lit it.
So he's, even like the line before that, Vivian, too, would all go together with that. So 194, guys, can you count up 6 lines from the bottom? And highlight, he squatted back on his heels and showed his teeth at the wall of branches. He raised his spear, snarled a little, and waited. You know, and that image gives you like, you know when you like tick off your dog, you make your dog angry? and they start snarling and their lips go up to show the teeth. That's exactly what I picture, is that like, you know, like the snarl. What's up?
Oh, what about 199?
199. This is when he's running.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shot forward first,
Burst the thicket,
first was
screaming, snarly, bloody. Yes, that's another good one too.
I have one on 191.
You wanna give it to us?
Yeah. 191 in the middle of the page. It starts, it's a 1, 2, 3rd indent down. It says he pulled himself between the ferns, tunneling in. Like that. Just tunneling like an animal.
Yep.
He laid the stick beside him and huddled himself down in the blackness.
That's good stuff. Okay, so there's like two of the better ones because it has so many pieces of imagery in it. Okay, so take whatever you like, but those are really good lines. On 195 and 196, and even a little on 197, that all of that is just him thinking of his options. Okay, so guys, he's in the thicket, he's surrounded, and the thicket is on fire. He's got to act fast. He has to come up with how he's going to get out of this. So what are his three options for escape? Abby, what is he considering?
He considered running from the one.
Break the line. What else? Climbing up a tree. And the third one, Cassie? Break the line, climb the tree, or third one. Riley?
Hide so now that they're dancing around the pass.
Hide, yes, and let them pass. Okay, good. So this is gonna be at the bottom of 196, top of 197. Do you literally see bottom of 196? Break the line, highlight, tree, highlight, top of 197, hide and let them pass. So even if you zoned out during that whole thing where he's thinking, at the end of it, you get a little summary of what he just said. So there you go. All right, so JG, which of those three does he choose? What? Hide and let them pass. Okay, so now on 197, skip the first paragraph and go to the second indent and highlight hide was better than a tree because you had a chance of breaking the line if you were discovered. Hide then. He wondered if a pig would agree. Okay. Really? Okay. All right. So now, on 197, he's looking for a place to hide, and what does he choose? And how do you know? Eric, where does he hide, and how do you know? Do not whisper. This class.
question.
This is not a question on your homework.
Get in the bushes.
What bushes? Kyle, I'm going to harm you.
That's on video.
He didn't hear anything. I went to like 2
Edit
words.
that.
He's looking.
He's got it.
And it doesn't actually
It
say.
doesn't say what the
You have
piece is,
to
but you have to
infer.
figure it out.
Yeah. No. Don't throw your arm out.
Hold on.
Okay, well, like this, maybe we will give him the text and maybe he can figure it out as we give him the text, okay? So hold on. So do you see in the middle of 197, everybody, the paragraph that starts with, at last he found what seemed to him the right place? Do you see that one? Yes? Okay, keep reading. So it says, at last he found what seemed to him the right place, though the decision was desperate. Here, the bushes and a wild tangle of creeper made a mat that kept out all the light of the sun. Does that
Where
help
have
you?
we read about that place before?
Does that help?
Oh, yes, you do. You're gonna be mad at yourself later.
Josh?
Simon Pegg place.
Yay!
Yes, remember? The mats, all the tangled vines. Now, the only thing that's not there, that
And I
really,
wish
yes,
the
right, that
butterflies.
really would have given it away
The butterfly.
Butterflies. Okay, so does anybody want to venture a guess as to why the butterflies aren't there? Symbolically, maybe, like what this means? Hold on! Elliot.
All the good stuff.
So like all the good is gone, and those were sort of like the creatures that like were around when Simon would go there. That's one thing.
I was just gonna say Simon's dead.
Sort of like the same thing, sort of. But there's one other thing that somebody gave me where I was like, that's actually pretty good.
With the Lord of the Flies butterfly.
Oh, back in a previous chapter when he created that thing, the butterflies scattered. Okay, good. But what's consuming the island?
Evil.
Yes, but set by evil. Yeah, so like the fire, you know how like animals get pushed like when there's a
Oh, yeah.
fire and they like try to flee and run away. So maybe the butterflies have abandoned this spot because the fire is coming. Did you have something to add? You're good? Okay. All right, so let's highlight that. At last he found what seemed to him the right place, though the decision was desperate. Here, bushes and a wild tangle of creeper made a mat that kept out all the light of the sun. Are you guys okay with that? Okay. It's right in the middle of 197. It's like the third or fourth indent down.
I wrote myself a little note next to that that says Simon's spot.
Yes. Okay, and then on 198, he's hiding in there and he can hear that the fire is huge and it's coming towards him. And he also can start to hear boys walking towards him. And so on 198 and 199, you get this buildup of him getting more and more terrified and more panicked and like readying himself for whatever it is he's going to have to do. Okay? And I do think this is still a good place to pause. I do. So I think we're going to pause here and we're going to do the last 4 pages tomorrow.
Cliffhanger.
There's like a cliffhanger.
Although you already know the end, so it's not that much of a cliffhanger.